Okay, welcome back to another one of my update videos of the very much unrehearsed kind. Um, I feel like over the past month or so since the last video, I haven't been watching a lot of physical media. I have seen a few things that I can show today, but I think for the most part, I I've been watching Mubi and YouTube and a little bit of Netflix. I just finished the Jeffrey Dahmer show on Netflix, which I thought was good for a while, but then it sort of ends up being a bit too drawn out, and some of the issues regarding bringing up another serial killer story, even if it's not romanticized. It's a tricky subject to make these series shows about serial killers. It's become I think it's dangerous when you make this kind of thing a trend, and that's my issue with it. Ultimately, when the show left me, I was sort of like not a knot in my stomach necessarily, but I felt badly about some of it. Anyway, that's not what I'm going to talk about today, but that's an example of something I have been watching on streaming. And then just a lot of other stuff, a lot of other stuff. But I have a few things to show physically. So first thing here is Shogun's Joy of Torture. It's my first Teruichi film, and this one shocked me. This was actually from 1968, and it's not the content of the film that shocked me, but the fact that this came out in the 60s. I didn't really expect that. It is a story of pleasure and pain, the pleasure of inflicting pain on others, and the sort of indictment, is that the right word I'm looking for, on this whole history, the evil areas of history of punishment that we should banish, we shouldn't indulge in anymore. But at the same time, it's like we shouldn't indulge in this anymore. But let me just make a movie where I indulge in this. But there's something about it that really works. It seems actually surprisingly multi-nuanced, and some pretty interesting ideas revolving these subjects, and some very interesting set pieces as well, and some moving aspects to the second story in particular. There's three different stories about capital punishment and torture and so on, and there's a lot of beauty in them. In all of this pain, there's definitely a lot of beauty. So that's that one. I do want to see more of Ichi's work. There's a few more that's available, so maybe I'll try to get those eventually. Here's a film by Koreeda Erdal, about this lonely man who buys a sex doll that comes to life. And then the weird thing about this is, maybe I misunderstood something, but she comes to life and she goes out and lives her own life when he's at work. And then when he comes home, she's home. She's sort of preparing to become the sex doll, the inanimate doll again, breathing life out of her, if you will, before he arrives. But he doesn't notice anything. But it's obvious that she's turned from a doll to a human. Or is the characters not supposed to notice any physical difference? Is that just the audience who's noticing a physical difference? Because I suppose, she's supposed to be an air. She's not turning into human flesh. She's still an air doll. She just looks human, I suppose. But she goes out into the world and experiences the world for herself. So, and nobody really notices her looking any different. So I feel I didn't really understand that aspect. Like, is she supposed to look human or not? Because some people think she does, and apparently her owner, if you will, doesn't notice anything. But that could have been on my part. I may have missed something. But I for the most part, this was an interesting story of the need to fill a hole within yourself, I suppose. And please forgive me, but no pun intended. But she's, there's an obvious reference there. But she's obviously inflatable. She's hollow, and I feel like that also reflects a lot of the other characters in this film. They are described as being hollow or empty. They need something within themselves filled also. So there's some interesting parallels there. But I really enjoyed that. That's another Japanese film. Actually, I have a third one here, but this is a DVD, an old DVD, Eureka. Shinji Aoyama. He unfortunately died recently. I don't know why he died. I think he had cancer, actually. That's very unfortunate. I feel like there's been quite a few directors who's died over the past couple of years. A lot of them from Eastern Asia. Anyway, this is a long film. First of all, it's an old DVD from like 2002 or something, so it doesn't look ideal, but it works just fine. And at 3.5 hours, it doesn't necessarily feel like it's that long. It's a fairly simple story, but with complex emotions, about the desire to choose life, or the need to choose life over death. But there's a long journey to get there, to that point. But it's a beautifully shot film. It's sort of steeped in trauma, or it's got its foundation in trauma, or what am I trying to say? The opening act depicts a moment of trauma for the characters, which they then reunite a year later, or a couple of years later maybe, to work this thing out together, the people who were experiencing the trauma. I have to be a bit brief with these. Bloody Moon. Now this was a fun film. Jess Franco. I've seen one film from him, Vampiros Lesbos, and that was more of an emotional, sort of erotic film, and this is more of just like a kind of balls out horror slasher. All tools, opening up the toolbox, let's see what we can do here, that kind of a thing. And there's a fluidity to this film that was really interesting. Like the last act just has all these shocks, one after the other. It doesn't feel like it just keeps going. The momentum is incredible towards the end. And I mean, obviously a lot of it is self-referential. I mean, Jess Franco is very much aware of the kind of film he's trying to make. But obviously you have some of these themes that are played a bit more dramatically, that become very entertaining when you have it all together. There's some aspect to the the killer, like obviously with slashers there's a big reveal, which usually the reveal is not necessarily that satisfying in terms of the plot, but it is in terms of the horror a lot of the time. But in this one, I feel like it was a bit atypical in the way that they dealt with that whole thing. I'm not gonna spoil anything, but anyway, that was a very mediocre review, but I very much had fun with this. As you can see, there's some gore. It was a lot of fun, that one. I found these two. I may have shown these in some haul video. I don't know if I did, but a Chinese Odyssey Part 1 and Part 2, Pandora's Box and Cinderella. I don't know why the second one is called Cinderella. I feel like this could have been called Pandora's Box Part 2 or something. Anyway, but they are, I don't know if these are official legit DVDs. I don't know if they are released by the same studio. It doesn't really look that uniform on the spine, so I never really know with these imported Asian releases. I don't know how to necessarily pin down whether or not they are legit, but they look just fine. Well, I should say the first one looks just fine in my player on my TV, but the second one does not. This one is a bit more of a struggle to put up with the quality of. Like, some people might turn this off when they realize what the quality is like. But I had so much fun with the first one that I did end up putting up with it. And they are, I mean, they're Hong Kong films from the 90s. They're based on this story, Journey to the West, which I haven't looked into at all. So forgive me, I don't know anything about the origin of that. But it's a version of that story, or that fable, or that myth, or whatever you would call it. The first one, I mean, they are pretty heavy on the action, but also heavy on the comedy. Like the first one has more kind of effects going for it, and the second one has more of a more heart, in a very literal excuse me, in a very literal sense. If you've seen it, it's got heart. Uh, there's some very goofy sequences in the second one that kind of run for a bit too long, and I wasn't really sure exactly what I felt about it. Partly because it's very difficult to kind of unravel the plot, but when the film ended, when the whole thing wrapped up, it definitely felt satisfying. But they're almost good for different reasons. I suppose they do have something in common, and that is that they start very in a very exaggerated way, and then they end in a more serious way, where the plot element comes in a bit more. Here's one that I've seen before, Meek's Cutoff, Kelly Reichardt. So I would have seen this. This came out in 2010, so I was 18 then. So I guess that sort of makes sense, because I may not be the smartest person in the world today, but when I was 18, I was pretty stupid. I was pretty dumb. So watching a film with some heavy symbolism, if you will, or a deeper plot with meaning beyond what's going on screen, would have perhaps at that point gone over my head. And I'm still working on dissecting the films I watch, and I always will. But I feel like now maybe I understood this a bit better. And I feel like the reasons why I did is not really appropriate to disclose, because they are very much a spoiler, kind of. But I don't want to. I don't want to take the chance. I do really like her films. I haven't seen any bad ones. I really, really love Certain Women. It's a beautifully shot film, and Wendy and Lucy is such a small, kind of sparse but achingly moving story. And First Cow I saw last year, I think, maybe earlier this year, and that was another very moving story. And the other one that I saw, Old Joy, was also good, but maybe not up to the heights of the other ones. And there may have been another one that maybe that's all. I've seen a couple short films from her, actually. There's one called Travis, which I struggled with. I think I had to rewind and kind of watch it again. I didn't really get much out of it. But then recently I saw on YouTube, speaking of YouTube, I saw another one of her short films called Then a Year, which I was really kind of sucked into and really taken by. I guess I have time for this last one also. This one I just kind of had this on in the background. Patti Smith, Dream of Life. Pretty funny, not fun. Well, funny to an extent, and moving to an extent. But these kinds of documentaries about, biographical documentaries, if I'm already familiar with the person, I may not always intently watch the whole thing. So yesterday I was kind of scrolling online, looking at something, and then I just wanted something to have on in the background, and sort of I tend to kind of, some parts suck me in. I'm sort of always trying to keep track of the movie, but sometimes I don't feel like I need to watch every frame. This is only with certain kinds of films, and because I'm familiar with Patti Smith already, I figured this was maybe that kind of a movie that I could kind of have on in the background a little bit. I have seen her live, I think in 2013, and I really enjoyed that. The opening band was First Aid Kit, and I read her book, Just Kids, leading up to that, and I really enjoyed that book as well. So I am familiar with her, and she's definitely somebody who encapsulates, or she... this is always the problem. I'm sitting here and I don't edit my videos at the moment. I'm trying to come up with the right word, and I get stressed out. But she, let's just say, inhabits the word cool. Like, she's definitely a cool person. That's a word that's overused, like genius. Like, oh, everybody's a genius. Everybody's cool. Well, she really is cool, I think. And not too many people are. Anyway, that is all for today. A small stack. I don't know. I'm gonna try to maybe watch more physical media over the next month. So hopefully the next video will arrive a bit sooner. But thank you for watching. Yeah, it's tough right now. It's a little bit tougher than usual. I find in my life anyway. I have to find things that makes me less anxious, and that's not always that easy. But films, they do the trick to a certain extent. I always feel like films is like it's like a gasoline. Like I fill up the tank a little bit with energy, and I get inflated. Speaking of another film I talked about before, but it inflates me. It makes me more. It makes me stronger. It makes me able to go through with the next few days, if you will. If I've seen a really good movie, it's like almost like a weight off. I really need it. It's like I'm not gonna say it's like medicine, but I really need it. It's very important. So thank you for listening to me, and I'll keep watching movies, and I'll be back next time. Thank you so much.